Hello everyone, welcome back to the Irish Guys podcast. So there's a little podcast out we did. Big Kirby came back around again, and we did a little podcast on the Premier League, on the football, a little update on it, and few technical issues. I finally got the hang of actually fully editing an audio sound coming from a mixer into a laptop, and then through Audacity kind of making it sound as good as possible at the minute. But we're trying to do a little bit more video stuff now, and obviously the laptop that I'm using at the minute isn't really good enough. Bought myself one of the new MacBooks, M1 Air. Was like, yeah, this is perfect. I'll be able to video edit on it. I'll be able to sound record on it. Everything will be 100%. £1,000 laptop, £1,000 laptop, and it doesn't have, now this is somebody that doesn't know anything about tech, doesn't have an audio line in capability basically. So I can't use a mixer, plug it into the laptop to record the audio through a mixer or whatever, which seems like, why would you fuck with that? Apparently all them sort of things just normally come within the headphone jack on the side of most laptops, which it did have, and I thought, okay, I'm on to a good thing. And it's a really high-end laptop, and then it's got no audio line in feature. So yeah, the audio that you heard, or if you did tune in to the last episode that was out, was literally just recorded off the laptop, because at the time I thought it was actually recording through it. The laptop landed that day, Crippy landed that evening. I hadn't got the full working of it yet, and that was just the audio recorded from the laptop speakers. So now I have to send the fucker back and get another one, and I think I'll just go with Microsoft this time. Windows or whatever, apparently they don't really take the line in feature out of the headphone jack. Don't understand why you would do that anyway. It seems like a simple enough thing to just keep in your computer, especially when it's as expensive as it is, and especially when it's meant to be as good as it is. It didn't make much sense to me, but anyway, handling, trying to learn tech stuff, and I am not good with it at all. But I think I've actually got the audio for this down now. The last couple of podcasts prior to that one, I had the editing of the audio only, pretty good, I think. I'm trying till the sort of meaning behind it is you have to take the audio out of the video that you've recorded, and then use the audio that you've recorded through the mixer and dub it over it basically. And you need sort of video editing platforms and stuff, Final Cut Pro and that, to kind of get it done. So that's where we're at now. I've kind of got the audio stuff down. I'm trying to now convert it a little bit to do some video stuff, and that was where the issue arose with the new laptop. But back with the old one for the next week or so, just to get the other one sent back, get a new one out, and hopefully this comes out okay. Apologies if you're on YouTube, it'll still sound a little bit echoey because I'm just using the phone's audio at the minute. But yeah, enough of that crack. It's been a nice, it's been a couple of days of good crack, like, so frustrating. But anyway, technology. But yeah, right, enough of that. NFL. We've kind of, the season's done and dusted now. There was some good stuff from the Buccaneers, like Super Bowl boat party thing. That was good crack. And sort of a little bit, me and Vesty will be back in and sort of wrapping up sort of a little bit of the NFL content. We were kind of heavy on it throughout, the season. We'll probably do a little bit of stuff maybe towards draft time. We had planned actually last year to do like a team rebuild type thing. We've done a few of them for our football and stuff, and we'd kind of planned on that. We'll maybe get some of that sort of stuff done, but then with the pandemic and stuff and the lockdown at the time, we kind of never got round to getting that one done. It was kind of just put in the back burner. But we'll maybe do something like that. We'll maybe do a little bit of draft build up, but we'll sort of lower down a wee bit of the NFL content, and maybe try and do a few more other things. I know Big Dev's probably going to look to be talking about WrestleMania and stuff, and all that sort of carry on. So we'll probably wind down in the NFL content a little bit now. But I sort of done a video last week or the week before, and it was kind of my thoughts and takeaways from this NFL season. And it ended up sort of just being a video about, the way the NFL's going, certain player positions, coaching schemes and stuff like that there. Just stuff of that nature more than any sort of takeaway for any specific team or anything like that. So if you haven't watched that video maybe or listened to that podcast, go back and listen to that one, because I kind of want to link it a little bit to this one, slightly anyway. As I said, it was talking a wee bit about sort of the offensive explosion that's happened in the NFL. I talked a little bit about player power in the NFL that's kind of coming to the forefront now. A lot of wee different things like that, and then yeah, it just got me thinking a little bit. There's been a lot of trade rumors recently. It's going to be a hectic off season, and that's kind of where I wanted to go with this episode of the podcast. As I said, I was talking about I think I even talked a little bit about the sort of college revolution and simplifying of offenses in college, and then how that led into a bit of a change in the NFL, and the offensive explosion and the way teams are moving and stuff now. That was all talked about on player power. So that's kind of where I went to. That's kind of where it started, and then it's linked into this video. So go back and then give it a check out or listen to the podcast or whatever that I did that time. So this one, sort of just called it sort of the NFL quarterback carousel that's going to happen this off season essentially. Since I started watching the NFL, it's been about, as I said a few times on the podcast, it's been about maybe 14 odd years, but anywhere between 10 very, very regularly and 14 or 15 a little bit less regularly at the start. But I've never really seen anything like this before in the NFL. I think it's definitely new to a lot of people, even obviously American listeners or anybody that's listening from that part of the world has watched it a lot longer than I have. But I've never seen anything like this before, especially in the NFL. Now, it's been a part of the NBA for quite some time now and stuff like that, but as far as the NFL goes, I've never seen anything like it. There's been a big change. Player power is coming to the forefront. There wasn't that many big stars at multiple positions in the NFL for many years. But now, with social media presence and stuff like that, there's a lot more players coming to the forefront. They make a lot of money outside the game, and it used to be the NFL, the Shield, and the ownership structure and the teams and stuff. What said, went as for many years, but now things are definitely changing, and there's just I was sort of thinking 10 odd years ago or whatever, when Peyton Manning had his injury. He was still in Indianapolis, and they were obviously on for a horrific season, lined up for the number 1 overall pick, and Andrew Luck was there, who at the time was generational. This is the quarterback for the next 20 years of your franchise type talk. The NFL and the media and stuff around it was on fire just about Peyton Manning. Are they actually going to let Peyton Manning go? Is this the right move? Very conservative play from or a very radical sort of move. Not conservative. Conservative is the wrong word. A conservative league, essentially, more so than anything else. We're sort of worried about you're letting Peyton Manning go for an unproven talent. It doesn't really matter that it's Andrew Luck. You didn't see movement of quarterbacks much, there was movement, but it wasn't for the top tier guys. It wasn't, you look at Brady, he's been in his job since he was drafted. Big Ben as well. There was a slight bit of movement with the Eli Rivers Breeze stuff, but one happened on draft night and Breeze was there beforehand. Big Ben's been there his whole career. The established guys never really talked about moving. Now there is still a little bit of that. You can't really see somebody like Patrick Mahomes moving or anything like that there. But players, the league's changing in a way, and as I said in the previous video, it's come from the sort of simplifying of the college game and making it easier for quarterbacks, which then led, and they said it would never happen, but it bled into the NFL, make the game easier for quarterbacks. So you're even seeing now a lot more quarterbacks that are being drafted in their rookie seasons having great years. That used to not be the norm. Quarterbacks are coming in and having an instant impact in their career, which again was never the norm. It took you a while to build in You think of the likes of Aaron Rodgers, even Brady as well, Now when he got his start, he did win one, but at the same time, it took him a wee while. That was the thing, It wasn't just, it was a completely new thing. It was something you'd never learned before, and you were coming in and trying to learn all the technical terms and stuff like that there, and there was a steep learning curve. So the game has been, the wind outside is nuts. So the game has been simplified essentially, and quarterbacks are having like a bigger impact earlier in their career. You're seeing the likes of Kyler Murray, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, multiple quarterbacks coming in and having big impacts very early in their career. So that's the way the thing's going now. And obviously recently there was the Matthew Stafford trade for Jared Goff. Now Jared Goff, I sort of made my thoughts on Jared Goff known on the podcast quite a bit. Didn't think he was really all that great. I was sort of saying if you're having to get Sean McVay to coach you through a game and tell you where you need the ball to go to, you're not it really. They did give him a big contract, and now they've moved on. So along with that, and along with the Deshaun Watson stuff, who is an incredibly talented quarterback, it looks like it could be shaping up for a bit of a hectic off season. And quarterbacks that maybe you thought that there would have been a lot of quarterbacks back in the day that would have lingered about a bit. They would have had, there'd have been starters here that have been bounced about, but there's a lot more NFL caliber quality quarterbacks now. Like, not all of them are great. Like you think of this year, like Marcus Mariota, like some of these players have had like a little bit of a modicum of success basically in their career. Marcus Mariota was a starter for a number of years in Tennessee, was moved on and was a backup. You have Jameis Winston there who obviously has his issues, but was a starter for his the entirety of his rookie contract essentially in Tampa Bay. Tyrod Taylor, who's led a team to the playoffs before, and when he was in Buffalo. You have Fitzmagic and stuff as well, but there's a lot of quarterbacks in the league now. A lot of quarterbacks that teams can maybe do something with. Now, as I said, I'm not the biggest fan of Jared Goff, but now he's been moved to Detroit. He's going to be a starter elsewhere. There's just a lot more quarterbacks, and there's a lot more coming. That's the thing. You think of this year, you have like Trevor Lawrence coming in the draft, who obviously will be snapped up by Jacksonville. You would imagine pretty handily. You have Justin Fields, who has come in. Who's come in at Ohio and done okay. Maybe not the perfect project, but a possibility anyway. Zach Wilson out of BYU has had a great year. Now, admittedly, I haven't watched a lot of college football this year, and compared to previous years, just because sport everywhere has been a little bit diminished without fans and stuff, and no college had some people in, but I didn't really feel it this year. You've Trey Lance there as well. Mac Jones, but again Alabama and all the sort of stuff around that. He's throwing to a lot of good receivers and wide open receivers. But there's your young lad Sam Ellinger, who I watched play LSU a few times. Now, definitely not the most gifted quarterback, but if there's somebody that's his game in that draft, show me him, because Sam Ellinger is game as fuck. Watched him play against LSU a couple of times and give them fits. Not the perfect quarterback, no doubt about it, and maybe he won't make it at the next level, but a gamer. So that, along with the fact that there's going to be a lot of there's a lot of talent obviously coming out of college each and every year that at least deserves a run and a rattle. Like you think of the Washington football team, like took a chance on Dwayne Haskins, and they cut him obviously, but that's somebody that's still obviously he didn't look great, but at the same time maybe can move on somewhere else. Maybe he probably will be picked up by an NFL team somewhere along the line. So there's going to be a lot of quarterbacks just in the vicinity. Obviously there's only 32 teams, but there's a lot of talent all over the place. And there's scheduled to be a lot of movement, and there's a lot of question marks over teams. So I wrote down a few teams here, and just teams that have at least question marks at what's going on at quarterback, or that there's been some rumours around. Now, granted, not everything is going to change this off-season. Not a chance. not all the rumours are going to come to fruition. Deshaun Watson could be a Texan, come the end of next season still. That is a possibility, and probably more likely than not if the Texans don't get the deal that they want. But look, I wrote down a lot of teams here that have all got question marks, or at least a little bit, around the quarterback position and what's going on. And with now the amount of talent that's coming in, the amount of options that there is, and I suppose the thing was, 10 years ago, teams were afraid to make a quarterback change or to let a quarterback go out the door, because the thinking of the time was that there's not going to be another guy even as good as him to just be NFL starter quality. Like, there's a reason Matthew Stafford was never traded before now. He's still a relatively young quarterback, and Matthew Stafford's been a very solid NFL starter throughout his career, but now he is traded. The Detroit let him go, and I know it's a new regime change and stuff too, but at the same time they're getting in a worse quarterback. But because there's more of them out there, I think teams are a little bit less afraid to sort of pull the plug. You're seeing this happening elsewhere with the stalling of the Dak Prescott deal, and the possibility of letting Carson Wentz go. So, as I said, I wrote down a few teams here, and it would be, until I sat down, writ them out, and really properly thought about it, about who's doing what, and the question marks around them, I didn't think that there would be as many. And as I said, it could be leading up to a crazy couple of years as far as quarterbacks go. As I said, not everything will probably happen this off-season, but at the same time, it looks like over the next few years there could be a lot more quarterback movement than we've ever seen, and a lot more of this stuff that did happen with Jared Goff maybe happening again. So, for an example, to start us off, I wrote down the Dolphins initially. So obviously, Deshaun Watson, the rumours are that the possibility is that he would consider the Dolphins as an option. That looks like a good wee team and a setup down there now, good coaching staff, play hard, and they look better with Fitzmagic in as the starter than they did with Tua. There's a few question marks around Tua, again back to the drafting a young quarterback and maybe it not working out. There was the big injury and stuff, but there's a few question marks around him and whether he is the guy that's going to lead the franchise forward. There was a few good signs from him last year, but nothing to really break the mold anyway. So the Dolphins are one. Obviously the New England Patriots are one. Like, you think of Cam Newton, another guy, obviously didn't play well this year, but another guy that's going to be bouncing around the league looking for a job. And especially if Tua's previously, like with Miami, if Tua's doing that or Fitzmagic's doing that, there's more guys that are in the market. The Pats need a quarterback. I think that Bill will definitely coach up the defense. They'll have a lot less holdouts. There'll be a bit more of a revamp there, and he desperately needs a quarterback to come in because Cam isn't it, especially for him. I don't think there's any doubting around that. And then the Jets. So 3 teams in the AFC East alone have got quarterback questions, and possibly could be in for making a move. The Jets is another destination that has been tipped for Deshaun Watson. Robert Saleh's there now. It's a weird one because the Jets roster's not great, and if Deshaun wants to go and compete now, Saleh's obviously an interesting head coaching hire. But again, they've got a quarterback Sam Darnold, who was only drafted a few years ago, who's kind of had a bit of a bad run of form. He had the mono and stuff as well, which has been unfortunate for him, but has shown glimpses of talent, and has just kind of had a rough start to his career. It's kind of been just all came at him at once with the bad illness and stuff too, and losing development time, and maybe he isn't it, maybe not, but there's another quarterback that could be dropped into this pool of question marks, or whatever way you want to describe it. The Jets need, so there's 3 teams in the AFC East. The Raiders have come out of nowhere as well. Talking about trading Derek Carr, again another quarterback in this pool. Talking about trading Derek Carr, the defenses look poor for the Raiders, and the offense and Derek Carr actually looked quite good. It looked like he was getting, John Gruden was getting the best out of Carr in that offense, and Deshaun Watson has been thrown around. That name has been thrown around there a little bit too. So, if Deshaun was to land there, obviously Derek's out the door, maybe probably going the other way, you would imagine, but at the same time, more movement. The Raiders have a question mark there. The Broncos, now I like Drew Lock, and I think that injuries and a few different bits and pieces have kind of held him back a little bit, but the NFL consensus seems to be that he's not it. I do like him. He has got his flaws, and he will give you the ball once or twice, but still young and has kind of had a stunted development a little bit. I like him, but the general consensus there is that he's not the guy. So if he was to lose his job or somebody was to come in and replace him, he would probably stay on the Broncos roster, but within the next couple of years he probably wouldn't be there, and it's another one for this plethora of quarterbacks that are about. The Steelers, Big Ben apparently wants to come back, but when the defense got injuries last year for the Pittsburgh, and the injuries started to rack up in the defense and it wasn't as dominant, Big Ben couldn't get it done, couldn't get the team down the field, couldn't stretch the field, couldn't throw deep. Doesn't look like he's got much left in the tank, and apparently he wants to come back, but it's not looking great for them. I think they're the team and probably in the AFC North that has a question mark at the quarterback position. Baker Mayfield obviously had a good season. Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow had his injury but looked good beforehand, so they're a team that's probably looking at whether or not they can make a move for a quarterback or something like that. And then I've just did the entirety of the AFC South, because the Colts have obviously lost Phillip Rivers. There's the Deshaun Watson stuff at Houston. The Jags have a question mark, but will likely solve it pretty swift by drafting Trevor Lawrence. And then the Titans as well. The Titans had a bit of a kick out of Ryan Tannehill, but I think that you can see that with a player of Ryan Tannehill's quality, he's a good solid NFL quarterback, but he's not going to carry you deep in the playoffs and not win you games himself. And especially with AJ Brown and Corey Davis having a good year this year, and Derrick Henry there, if you could get a better level of quarterback play there, it'll improve you. There's definitely this isn't the Titans in their best form. You have room to maneuver there and room to improve, and it is at the quarterback spot. Ryan Tannehill's not going to give you, probably not even going to give you what like a Derek Carr would give you or anything like that too. So again, the entirety of the AFC South, the Colts are in win now mode. That team's very good, and if they dropped in a quarterback of a better standard, and a better standard than even Phillip Rivers was this season, you would see a marked improvement. On to the NFC then. The entirety kind of the NFC East has all got question marks around their quarterbacks. Like Washington obviously cut their draft guy, and Dwayne Haskins. The Eagles drafted this year a quarterback, and now they look like they're gonna get rid of Carson Wentz and move along with Jalen Hurts. They obviously paid a lot of money for Carson Wentz, and it doesn't look like he looks very much like he's on the move. So there's options there for teams, maybe like the Bears. The Bears have definitely been interested in him as well. Indy, maybe you could see something like that happening along. All the teams that are QB needy, that maybe think they have a chance to win now, drop Wentz into the fold possibly. As I said, the Eagles have their question marks. That they have a question mark, and then it looks like they'll solve it and just roll with Hurts. But is Hurts really the answer either? I don't know. The Cowboys with Dak Prescott, and they're holding out on this contract. They've kind of seen now that paying Jared Goff, paying Carson Wentz big bucks hasn't really worked out for a couple of other teams, and maybe that puts a bit of the fear of it in them. So they maybe don't want to pay them really top dollars and rack the salary cap. So Dak could possibly be on the move. There's question marks around there. The 49ers, who thought they'd solved their problem by bringing in Jimmy Garoppolo, obviously doesn't look like it's worked. But again, Jimmy G was in the Super Bowl, didn't perform fantastically well, but he was there, and there was a lot of hype around him a few years ago. A few rumours of maybe Bill Belichick taking him back. Could be interesting because his price would obviously be much lower than when New England, let him go to San Francisco. So there's an open QB spot probably, and Jimmy G maybe on the move. Maybe Wentz or somebody like that too. Derek Carr as well, possibly. Sam Darnold maybe as well. The Jets are looking to move forward. There's been a little bit of, in this last couple of days, there's been a few whisperings, as I said, back to the player power stuff. There's been a few whisperings coming out of Seattle around Russell Wilson not really being entirely happy with the front office and not giving him the support of a good offensive line. He has been running for his life now. He kind of brought up, I think it was just before we finished up for Christmas, I think I brought up the Vesty, Russell hasn't just been as good without his solid running game, and maybe he does need that to establish his play action game. And maybe when you're just asking Russell Wilson to sling the ball all over the pitch just by himself, is he good enough? It was just sort of a theory, throwing it out there. Russell Wilson's obviously an immensely talented quarterback, no doubt about it. But maybe he does need a little bit of support from the run game. And when it was taken away this year after that hot start, and when he was asked to throw the ball all over the field, the sort of second half of the season slowed a lot for Russell Wilson. But again, there's been a few rumours around there now. I don't expect anything to happen. But you're starting to have quarterbacks speak out about the front office and looking to establish themselves. It was sort of talk around, I think I should be involved in more decisions that are made by the front office, and the talk was he's kind of sick of running for his life behind a bad offensive line. So the Seahawks in that division as well. You have the Cardinals there, who have obviously sorted their quarterback issues with Kyler. And then, the Rams have made the move to bring in Matthew Stafford. So there's movement, and there's a lot of questions everywhere. I moved on to the NFC North, and there's questions everywhere there. Everywhere. I'll actually just start with the Lions quickly. Now, the Lions have brought in a quarterback who was under an offensive-minded head coach, and a very intelligent one at that, in Sean McVay, and have to give him credit for it. He sort of changed my mind a wee bit, especially in the back half of this season. Good head coach. And he's now going to a defensive head coach, this guy Campbell, who seems great crack, to be fair. But, he's being paid a lot of money. He's going to a roster that's in a rebuild mode. And, he'll not have the support of Sean McVay anymore. So, down the line, there's Jared Goff, who has played in the Super Bowl, no matter what people think about him, what I think about him, who has played in the Super Bowl. And, at times has shown, to be good at running an offense, even though he was probably being talked through it. But look, he's ran an offense that at a point in time looked incredibly good. And he was a part of that. Now, it was based off the back of Todd Gurley's running ability, but he was incredibly good in that. He was great off the play action, no doubt about it. But again, in a year or two's time, is somebody like that moving around in the market? Because the Lions, the Lions are in rebuild mode, and maybe they stick with him, but maybe a new front office and a new regime in the building wants to get their own quarterback in, and maybe they see Jared Goff as a stopgap, and then down the line he moves on. The Bears have a massive question mark and hole with Trubisky obviously not picking up his option, then paying Nick Foles, and there's been heavy links to go and get Carson Wentz, and that'll be funny, have Carson Wentz and Nick Foles in the same building again. Look, that would be interesting. They have a question mark around their quarterbacks and what they're going to do. They obviously had that really great defense a couple of seasons ago, and it looked like, if we just had competent quarterback play, Vesty said it on the podcast 20 times, if they had drafted Deshaun Watson or Patrick Mahomes, they'd have won a Super Bowl by now. Look, they've got issues around theirs. Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers has hinted more than once that he maybe wants out of there. Now, they obviously had a great season this season, and maybe that alleviated some of the stuff surrounding Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers, but he's hinted more than once that he wouldn't mind moving. San Francisco, maybe, something like that. Indianapolis. Aaron could be on the move. Aaron could be on the move in the next year or so. And then my team, the Vikings. Kirk Cousins got a re-up of his deal. He's got this year and next year left on his deal, and then he's a free agent. I think he'll be in his mid-30s at that point. And, Kirk Cousins is as bad as it is probably the second best quarterback that the Vikings have had in the last 15 years. So I've had my issues with Kirk and stuff like that. And he's not really the prototype quarterback that teams need nowadays, you know. As I said, I talked about that in the video last week, a couple of weeks ago. The prototypical quarterback's changing. You now have to be a little bit more mobile, throwing off different platforms, throwing on the run, being a little bit more athletic. And, you know, the pocket passer quarterback is definitely becoming not the prototype anymore. You have to be able to move and do more than one thing. So even somebody like that who's probably established himself a little bit, but they're, you know, the front office and management, Spielman and Zimmer have been in the Vikings organization quite some time now, and they've done some great things, but have whiffed on some other things. Quarterback and a lot of offensive line being the two primary ones, I would say. They've done great work at receiver, they've done great work on defense, but again, for all the work and good work they've done in them positions, offensive line and quarterback play has been poor. And you know, they've went with Kirk and we've done okay, but again, the whole entirety of the NFC North's quarterback positions have got question marks over them, and I would say Kirk Cousins is one of them too. You know, the Vikings could be thinking about moving on from him as well. And then to round out the NFC South, the Panthers, like Teddy Bridgewater, who has been a competent quarterback in this league, you know, got the Vikings to the playoffs. Went down into Carolina this year and had a relatively decent year without his best offensive weapon in Christian McCaffrey, and in a young rebuilding team. You know, Teddy's probably got Teddy's probably got a ceiling, and they could be looking at a move for quarterbacks. So Teddy could be on the open market, and it'll be interesting to see where these guys that are maybe thinking about being moved on, the likes of Teddy Bridgewater, Carson Wentz, Nick Foles, maybe Dak Prescott, Sam Darnold, these type of people maybe move on and end up at, because there is a lot of teams that need quarterback help and play, and you know, especially with, as I said at the beginning, with quarterbacks moving in from college and a lot more quarterbacks taking their career into their own hands, it's going to be interesting. The Saints have a big question mark and multiple things. You know, Sean Payton will tell you that this is Taysom Hill's team going forward. I think we've seen enough of Taysom Hill's arm this year to say that that's probably bullshit. Jameis Winston's on the roster, who obviously, you know, can definitely throw the ball all over the pitch, but has decision-making probably issues and wild throws in him, throw a lot of picks, but arm talent, no doubt. And Drew Brees is now maybe thinking about coming back. And the Saints are 100 million over the cap, and the cap's going down this year, so there's quarterback question marks all over the place in there. And then, you know, the new front office and management has been given the sort of green light in Atlanta to possibly trade Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. So it's going to be an interesting off-season. As I said, you know, earlier, I don't think that everything is going to be just turned upside down this season, but there's enough quarterbacks, older quarterbacks, some of them younger quarterbacks that maybe haven't worked out in their first destination, and some sort of career starter level quarterbacks that are around the league. You know, maybe Kirk Cousins, maybe Derek Carr, Teddy Bridgewater, Alex Smith. There's a lot of quarterbacks of that ilk that are going to be about in the next few years. So as I said, younger ones that maybe just haven't worked out, maybe Tua, Darnold, players like that, maybe sort of career starters. You know, as I said, Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins, people like that. Then, you know, people like Deshaun Watson that are taking their career into their own hands, high-end quarterbacks. And then the influx of college quarterbacks coming in that are finding it easier every year, and they're coming in and making an instant impact. And there only is 32 NFL teams, and there's a lot of quarterbacks out there. Cam Newton, you know, Dak, Wentz, Brees, Darnold, Winston, Mariota, Tyrod, Jameis. You know, there's plenty of guys out there, Tua as well. There's a lot of people out there, and
I'm really interested to see over this next couple of years, and especially, well, I'm really looking to see how it works out this off season. Just where everybody goes, and what moves are made, and then over the next couple of years, just what can happen as far as the quarterback position goes, and if there's any more big movement. You know, like even I know that it was something different, but even Brady leaving New England to go to Tampa Bay has kind of kept that momentum rolling a little bit. And now, if you see somebody like Deshaun Watson in his absolute prime leave the organization that's drafted him, things are changing in the NFL. And as I said, the previous video that I did looked a lot at that sort of structure and the change in the NFL. But this one, I just wanted to specifically zone in on quarterback and a lot of things that are possible this off season. So yeah, keep downloading, folks. Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Podbean. Keep watching on the YouTube, liking the video, subscribe if you're new. Irish Case Podcast. We're also the Irish Case Podcast on Instagram. You know, we do a lot of our stuff over there. It's kind of our main advertising platform type thing. And yeah, Crippy will be back in next week. We'll have a bit more done. The audio will be better when he's back in next week. Hopefully this new laptop comes and there's no more fucking issues around technology, because I was ready to fuck it out the window. And Vesty will be hopefully back shortly, and he said that he is going to do a few more of his little road rants and send them over to me, and I'll get them up for him too for the time being. I think Dev's going to be able to maybe do a bit of wrestling and stuff like that there too. And as I said, hopefully there's no more audio issues with fucking laptops, because I've got the audio stuff down for the podcast streaming sites. I just also want to get that audio onto the video that we're now doing, and I need a better laptop and fucking one with a line in. So yeah, a lot more to come. We'll be back next week. We'll have a little bit more to do. As I said, the NFL stuff will probably die off a little bit now. We'll maybe do something a little bit more closer around draft time. Maybe me and Vesty, and maybe like a wee off-season rebuild type thing throughout, you know, draft and free agency possibly, and see where we go from there. We'll do other stuff. We have plenty of other ideas. We talk about a wide array of other sports and stuff too. We were doing that before we went NFL heavy. There'll be more NBA stuff, wrestling, different things like that there, all to come. But yeah, greatly appreciated that you keep tuning in, folks. Much appreciated, and it'll be good to have the boys back too, because it's a little bit less crack when you're doing this by yourself. But yeah, hopefully everyone will be back to normal shortly, and thanks very much for tuning in. That'll do me. Cheers.